What's up guys, welcome to Voicey here, this is your host, Captain Zach, and today's subreddit is r/TalesFromRetail. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to never miss an episode. This story's called, "It's Nice When They Give You the Rope to Hang Themselves With." So fair warning, this is a bit of a long story as it occurs in fits over a period of about 2 years, so settle in. I was working at a now defunct electronics and computer retailer that liked red. I was working as the return supervisor. So the first part of the story, my store went to transfer a decently sized TV to another store. In the process of it being shipped, the shipping company dropped it, effectively destroying it. What should have happened is the receiving store should have accepted it, put it in the damaged inventory, and filed a freight claim on it. What they actually did was refuse shipment, which meant it got sent back to us. Now, this company was using inventory management systems from the early 90s. This was in 2006. And one thing you couldn't do below the store manager level was cycle things into the inventory. And since this TV wasn't being transferred to us, all we could do was notify the store manager to have him cycle it in, and then file a freight claim, and once that was done, destroy the TV. So we got the TV back, and it goes into this weird kind of ether inventory of we physically have it, but logistically we don't have it. But we did have it originally. So take the TV, file the paperwork, and shove it in a back room until we see that the freight claim has been paid. The only person at the store level who could see if the specific freight claim had been paid was the store manager. So cue the second headache of the story. This is where we entered a period of about 14 months where we simply could not keep a store manager for longer than 5 months. They would either be fired, transferred, or promoted after a couple of months. So checking to see if a $400 freight claim has been paid just wasn't especially high on the priority list at the time. So we've gone through like 5 general managers at this point, the TV is still sitting there, all we need to know is if the freight claim has been paid and acknowledged. We would later find out that it would take about 3 minutes for a store manager to get that particular answer. We get what would turn out to be our third to last store manager. The company itself closed 18 months later, and after reading the story, I think you'll see why. The company itself was at that point just before it starts realizing it's on the edge of folding. You know, not quite at that point where they start closing underperforming stores, but if you're looking at numbers, you would know that it's being talked about. The manager we had at this point was trying to wring every penny out of everything he possibly could through every means he could. Well, he found the TV that wasn't actually in our inventory, and we couldn't sell it and decided that getting $800 for it was a great idea. Remember how I said the TV was $400 before? No, I'm not stuttering here. He wanted to get the freight claim paid for the TV, then have me process a return on the TV so we would get what we originally paid to the manufacturer back. Sounds super sketchy, right? Yeah, well, it is, as in outright illegal. So I did what I was told to do, right? No. I explained the situation to the manager and expressed my concern that what he was asking me to do was illegal. He said he'd double check on that. I sent an email up to District Loss Prevention asking about the TV and, in theory, asking if it would be illegal to do such a return. The loss prevention operator didn't have a chance to go through freight claims to find one specific claim, but said if I processed a return on an item that did not belong to us, the freight claim basically means that the shipping company has bought the TV. It would be considered embezzlement as would processing a return and then getting the freight claim. So yeah, the manager was straight up telling me to commit an illegal action. But word of mouth isn't good enough for defense on its own. In truth, he hadn't actually told me to do the return, just talked about having me do the return and said he would look into it. Well, a week later, the store manager tells me to process the return. I asked about the freight claim and he told me not to worry about that. It's been taken care of. I go to start processing the return. The warehouse manager sees me processing the return and asks me about it. When I tell him what the store manager said, he says he hasn't received the paperwork for the canceled freight claim, meaning the claim was either still waiting or was already paid. Well, this was a total shift for me as it pretty much solidified the point that the manager had just tried to set me up to be rolled under the bus if this ever came up. The warehouse manager agreed that the only way I was going to process a return on this TV was if we had canceled the freight claim. And cue the next 10 days where about 2 days the store manager would tell me to do the return. I would ask to see the canceled freight claim and he would say he would get it to me later. He tells me one more time to do the return. At this point, I am tired of having this conversation. But telling your boss that you're not going to do something they are telling you to do because you think they are trying to embezzle money just isn't going to go well. So I tell him that I'm really busy and what would be really helpful is if he sent me an email about the TV including the SKU number. That way it'll go into my inbox and that will be a reminder for me. Translation, I want a paper trail that doesn't end at me. I honestly never thought he would actually do it. Well, surprise, surprise. He actually sent me the email. I laughed, printed out a copy, took it to the warehouse manager, and said, "Hey, check out what the manager just sent me," showing him the email. He read it over and said, "Oh, fantastic." Took the email and started pulling records. I went back to my office while he sent a lengthy email up to corporate loss prevention. So 10 days later, we haven't heard back from corporate yet. I'd been having an annoying day, and I decided to head down the line to a bar and grill for lunch. I had just turned to head that way outside the store when I hear, "Hey, OP, how's it going?" I turned to see the district manager and another guy that I didn't recognize next to him. The district manager and I had the same name and had met one another a couple of times over the last 2 years, and we kind of looked alike. You know, if you squinted really hard and were blind in one eye, and looked at us underwater with no goggles. I mean, the similarity really ended at both of us being guys, 6 feet tall, heavy-set, and had dark brown hair. He got some sort of delight out of the running joke of talking to himself. I humored him normally. No harm in it, right? Well, this time he was that kind of serious casual people get when they're going to do something serious, but not to the person they are talking to right now. The district manager and I shake hands and exchange some pleasantries. He introduced me to the other guy. We'll call him Ricky. It's at this point that I notice Ricky is wearing the gold loss prevention collar pin, and my mind starts rolling trying to connect the name with loss prevention. I know the name should mean something. Well, it finally clicks. Ricky was the territory loss prevention manager, but he had considerable pull all the way up to the CEO and beyond. He had a history of having worked with the FBI and multiple police departments over the year. I have no idea if the story is true or not, but there was a story about Ricky showing up to a store and the entire management staff being taken out of the store in handcuffs. I tell the district manager it's good saying hi, but I'm on lunch. He gives me a pat on the back and says to enjoy it. He and Ricky head into the store. I proceed down to the bar and grill. I pull out my phone and call the warehouse manager to tell him Ricky just showed up. So I go to lunch, order it, eat it, pay for it, and head back to the store. Something like a 25-minute round trip in total. By the time I got back to the store manager had offered his resignation. The district manager has accepted, and the store manager had left the store. I found out later that the store manager was already being investigated for a bunch of company policy issues regarding paperwork and records. The email the warehouse manager had sent suddenly shifted that investigation to a loss prevention investigation. You guys know that Michael Jackson song, "Smooth Criminal"? Yeah, that was not about this guy. This story's called "Customer Demands Cashier to Tow and Fill Up Her Car and Pay for It?" Okay, so this is going back to 2003. I'm working a minimum wage job at a very busy gas station in the UK. I'd only been there a few months. That's outstanding considering the staff turnover for this place. I know the ropes of the place, and it's also, and still is, very busy. Lines of cars and trucks going down the highway and a line of customers going out the door, and I'm working alone as usual. Hundreds of customers with places to be. Here's the cast. Me, the overworked 17-year-old with a bright future of PTSD and other mental health goodness. Next 15 years of bliss in this hellhole. Karen, old bench missing her butler and a pole up her, Karen got out of a taxi, came up to the front of the line past 20 customers waiting patiently, aged 70 plus. She's dressed head to toe in a black velvet and fur coat and wearing more jewelry than I've ever seen. She also looked vaguely familiar, see at the end. She demands in a very snobby voice, "I need fuel." Sorry, but you need to wait your turn."
I need fuel and my car collected from down the road.
Me and a few customers give her a weird look. If you've broken down, I have the number for recovery service and you can use our phone. And I hand her a card with the number and the phone in between the customers. She looked at the card and the phone as if I put dead rats on the counter.
Why can't you do it?
I'm afraid to say I can't. It's very busy today.
No, why can't you go retrieve my car?
Me wondering, whatever? We're a petrol station. We don't have other recovery services.
Nonsense! You will collect my car this instant?
I'm getting annoyed by now. So are the other customers. She lets her car run out of fuel, leaves it on a gridlocked highway, gets a taxi to come to my station, and somehow it's my fault and responsibility to rectify the situation? How? I can't close the station. I'm here on my own. I don't own a car or even have a license. I will call the recovery company for you when I have a free moment. Just be aware that they will charge a fee and need payment in cash. There's an ATM outside. She now gets red in the face.
Are you stupid? Why should I pay? My car has run out of fuel. You have to deal with it.
I'm trying to keep my cool, serve customers, and find an alternative to get her out of the store at this point. In that case, there are fuel cans behind you that you can purchase and fill.
Very well.
She picks up a 1-gallon can and slams it on the counter.
Go fill it.
I quickly say sorry to the next customer and scan the can. That will be £5 and another $3.50 to fill it, $8.50 altogether.
I'm not paying for that. It is your responsibility to provide fuel, and your customer service is atrocious. I refuse to pay. You will pay for my recovery, my fuel, and my taxi.
Then you can leave. An entire line of customers are chewing her out too, telling her to get the F out. We're busy and stupid old cow.
You'll be hearing from me about this, and I will have your job for this insolence.
And she storms out and gets back into the taxi that was blocking my forecourt. We did hear back from her about a week later. She had gone to customer complaints, reached the regional manager and the national HR, claiming that I was responsible for her car running out of fuel, it being abandoned on the highway, refusing to pay for towing and refueling, and being humiliated in front of other customers with demands of reimbursement and compensation for poor quality of service. Finally, a letter of apology written and signed by me with my letter of resignation. A week after this, the manager pulls me aside. She knew all about it. She heard the story from me and a few of our regular customers, as well as watched and heard it all on our security cameras. The Karen sounded crazy and looked like she had just come from a funeral. She chalked it up as being emotionally drained, senility, mental health, and said not to worry about it. She'd seen worse. Then she got letters and phone calls from head office, and that threw her theory out the window. She handed me a copy of the letter that was sent to Karen stating she was barred from all of our company stations nationwide and informed that the company or all members of staff are not charities. I read the name and realized she was my old principal from primary school. She was an old hellhound when I was 5, and looks like she just got worse as she got older. See you in hell, Mrs. M. Okay, you know what, honestly, I worked at my dad's gas station for a little bit, and I've had to deal with a lot of customers. However, I've never really had too many bad encounters. I honestly don't think I've had any bad encounters, as I'm not thinking of anything right now. Probably because it was like a smaller local gas station, and pretty much 90% of our clientele were regulars. So yeah, it wasn't too bad. Okay, actually working at the gas station was a lot of fun. Because, you know, my dad owned the place, so if I wanted something to eat, I could just grab something. If I'm thirsty, I could just grab something. Plus, we had some kick-ass pizza. Honestly, top 2 best pizzas I've ever had. And actually, I'm pretty sure they might still be around. If you're in Southeast Colorado, check out Tank and Tummy. If there's a Tank and Tummy store, it was owned by my dad because he started the chain. And the pizza is pretty damn good. Or at least it was when we ran the place. This story is called, "Can You Please Stop Throwing Up? You're Making the Customers Uncomfortable." I was reading a post on Reddit and was reminded of this anecdote when I worked for a big box retail store. We had blackout days around the holidays where, unless you were literally hospitalized, if you didn't show up to work, you were written up twice, and at risk of losing your job. I unfortunately came down with a virus or the flu mid-season and was throwing up constantly. I tried to call in when I was threatened with the above action, so I dragged myself into work and set up a stool and a trash can next to me. I would have to stop mid-interaction with customers to vomit into said trash can. And this went on for a few hours before one of my newer managers approached me.
"What are you doing? Trying to tough it out until closing? Well, can you please stop throwing up? I'm getting customer complaints and it's making them uncomfortable."
I'll get right on that. I was so blown away, all I could do was just sit there in shock. I ended up calling my general manager and had the assistant repeat what he had just asked me. And my general manager was like, "What the frick is wrong with you? Send her home." My shift manager argued he had no one to cover, and my general manager made him cover my shift so I could leave. I don't miss retail. And it's horrible. Some retail places treat their workers like actual machines. Like, they're people, man. They're people. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to never miss an episode.